Hey everyone, it's Desiree, and I am here again, finally, with the Simon Says February stamp kit called Crafty Friends. At least that's what the stamp set's called. Inside the kit, so let's be nosy, we have some awesome papers. They are double-sided, so sometimes it is tough to cut into them, but we did. But there's some really cute patterns and textures. I mean, there's wood, there's a piece of cork, and some muted solids when it comes to these papers. So they are extremely versatile when it comes to putting our cards together. Also, we have 3 envelopes. 2 of them are shimmer. One's in like a peach color, the other's a brown, and then a turquoise. I already cut my card bases down. So you got your blue, yellow, a really sharp gray, a white, and like a burnt orange color. Also, what came in the kit were some wooden die cuts, chip pieces in the shape of a cameras, 4 different types, and then that dressmaker form. Studio Katya gemstones. I almost forgot that word there. A really nice watercolor brush and a pair of scissors that I was opening the wrong way. And we will work with those just a little bit, see how they work. And then, of course, the Simon Says Stamp Craft Tacky Glue. You also got sample of 6 colors of Danielle Smith's watercolors. 2 texture embossing folders by, yes, Tim Holtz. One's like some dots and the other's like a grid. And then, of course, the stamp set, which is just absolutely awesome. There are some really tiny sentiments in this. I did not know we could go that small. So for the first card, I actually broke down and I got the entire Gina K ink stamp pad collection, and I'm loving them. So the 3 colors that I'm going to use are Turquoise Sea, Apple Mint, and Innocent Pink. I'm taking the card base first, and again, all my card bases are 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 top folding. And I'm going to stamp the sentiment directly onto that, "You make everything colorful." I'm going to use my Recollections Snow embossing powder, and we're just going to heat set that. And then just wipe away some of the excess powder from the anti-static tool that I used. The stamp set that I pulled in is by Prima. I couldn't find the name of it on here, so I will make sure that it is linked below. And we're going to use this one stamp in the 3 different colors. So I'm just going to place this down. I am going to work on a design base for my card. So the first color is, as I said, the Innocent Pink, and next is the Apple Mint. And the one thing that I do love about these inks, I'm still playing with them to find out what we can do, what we can't do, how far I can push them, is these are the type of inks that when you stamp on them, they may look blotchy, but they even out. As long as you have a nice solid coverage on it. Now, when it comes to this stamp and the way that I stamp them, I didn't mind if I didn't get an even coverage. So I wasn't worried about how inky were they. Because these are ink splatters. At least that's what I'm going to turn them into. I'm going to use the brush from the stamp set. And you can see the stamp actually has this point that comes off of it. So I'm actually stamping the water brush right off of that point. So it looks like the paint, of course, is coming from the water brush. I do use baby wipes to clean my stamps. And then once I'm done all these cards, I do use a scrubber when I use my VersaFine. This die here is by Lawn Fawn, and it's a stitched die. So it's just going to give me a straight line towards the bottom of this card. So I'm going to die cut that, and you can see it embeds stitch marks in there. So it's like a perforation that I've just put on that card. I'm using my Tombow Mono Sand Eraser because, yes, when you put something through your dye machine and it's still a little wet, the ink will be on the plate. Yeah, so I had to get rid of some of that. I then used one of the wonky stitch die from My Favorite Things. Cut that out so I could have my border. And then I cut a small piece of fun foam, and I just wanted it adhered to the top above that perforation line that I made with that die. And I'm going to place this right down onto my card base. Realizing that I forgot to type the second sentiment, because we all know I do things backwards, I'm pulling in from the stamp set the thanks in the circles, which I think is really cool. So I'm just going to stamp that down. I just put another piece of foam, fun foam, underneath that to make it even so I could get a nice impression. I'm going to use 3 of my NuVo Jewel drops: Rose Water, Sea Glass, and Key Lime. It just so happened the colors that I chose really matched very well with these drops. So I just wanted to add some dimension, even though I propped this panel up, but I just wanted to give some more texture to the top of the card, matching the drops to the ink splatters. I did beat the card a little bit just to level out the drops. The card was fine, no damage was done. But the perforation, now you can actually flip that open and it'll bend. So it's somewhat of an interactive card. So that was card number 1. Card number 2, we're going to pull in a lot of distress inks and the distress markers that match. So the first thing, you can tell I'm thinking here, wasn't quite sure what I'm doing. I took one of my circle dies and I drew a circle. So now I'm using the paint tube stamp, and with each of the colors of distress inks, I'm going to stamp around this circle. I want the base of the paint tube to be where this pencil line is. So I'm going to do the 9, 12, 3, and 6 mark first, and then I'll fill in with the others. So the colors that I'm using, I used Ground Espresso, Wilted Violet, Salty Ocean, Mowed Lawn, Scattered Straw, Carved Pumpkin, Festive Berries, and Warm Lipstick. I'm using the same colors in the distress markers because I'm adding the marker to the tip of the paint tube, and then I want to draw that out. And I'm using the water pen that came in the kit, and it's really nice. There's nice control with the water that's coming out. I didn't just want to use the distress ink. The paper that I am using here is a Bristol paper. I'm actually using the Bristol cardstock or paper that I get from AC Moore. It's a really nice brand. It's by their Nicole Premier section. I then cut out a circle of regular white cardstock and I stamped the paint palette in my VersaFine. I used my Penny Black antique frames, they are second, to cut out this panel, and then again I used the sentiment, you make everything colorful. I think you're going to see that sentiment a lot. I'm going to prop this up using my double-sided foam tape from Scotch, and I'm going to set that down onto my 4 1/4, 5 1/2 top folding card base. I'm then going to put a double layer. Okay, first, I grabbed a scratch of watercolor paper, and I'm using the Festive Berries, the Carved Pumpkin, the Scattered Straw, the Mowed Lawn, and the Salty Ocean. So it's almost like I'm creating a small ink palette here, because I just need a little bit of color because I want to watercolor in the circles of the ink palette. So just to have them kind of in the rainbow going on that as well. And then once that's dry, I put a double layer of foam squares, not just one, but two, because I really wanted this raised up. And now I'm just going to set this down onto my panel. And that is our second card. So our third card, we all knew the distress oxides were coming in. And we all had a feeling we were going to do some ink smushing. And we will be doing some ink smushing. But first, I want to create a background. I want to create my own pattern paper. So I took all of the crafty stamps, the paint tube, the marker, the pencil, the paintbrush, the ink palette, the scissors. I think that's it. There was just so many neat and cool items in this stamp set. And I set them up on a block. And now I'm just going to stamp along and create my own pattern paper. And after I stamp in the line going across, I'm going to use, or what I'm using here, is my Snow from Recollections embossing powder. They call it Snow. It's really white. And I'm going to offset these. So they're not going to be exactly alike going up the sheet. So they're going to, you know, be in different areas along this panel. Once we have this panel stamped, of course, we're going to heat set that. So it's, you can see the reflection there. So now we're going to have some fun. So this first color that I chose, excuse me, is Picked Raspberry. No. Wilted Violet, my bad. And I just put it down on my craft sheet. I put some water to it, and I'm applying it to the cardstock. I am making sure that this layer is dry. The oxides will build upon themselves and won't mix as long as each layer is dry. So if this wasn't dry, and if I go in with my next color, it will mix. You could get mud depending upon all the colors. The four that you see on my craft mat are Picked Raspberry, Wild Honey, Broken China, and Cracked Pistachio. Yes, I can't speak. So I'm just removing some of the wet droplets that are still on this panel, and this is just a regular sheet of Nina Solar 80 pound. And now I'm just using some of the Cracked Pistachio, I cannot say that word, let's just say cracked green, okay? And just putting some splatters, and you can see I'm kind of going from the bottom right to the top left. I'm then going to pick up some of the Picked Raspberry, and I'm going to put those in certain areas. Again, not specific, but I did want them placed. So I wanted the randomness, but I wanted a certain level of randomness. If, you know, it's like we try to control chaos. Sometimes those two words don't go together. So I'm dipping back into the Picked Raspberry, but I realized I did not dab off the splatter. So that's what I'm doing now, because I didn't want the green and the red to mix. I could get brown with those two colors. So you can see I'm kind of going a line. And as I'm doing this, you can see it's filling in the background. So now you're starting to see those items that are embossed getting resisted from the paint that I'm putting on. Or it's resisting the paint, I'm sorry, that I'm putting onto this background. So you can see as I'm putting the yellow, it's layering on top. You can still tell that the purple's down there. You can still tell the pink. Now, even though some of the pink was not dry, when that Broken China went on there, it kind of gave you a green a little bit, and that's okay. That's what I was looking for. So very splattery, very textured looking. That's my big word today. So I took a piece of vellum, a long strip, and I heat embossed. I used my VersaFine and used my clear embossing powder on top of a piece of vellum, and I heat set that. And now I'm going to adhere this, and I'm only going to put glue just behind the layers. This glue is phenomenal. And look at that detail. I'm getting a more pinpoint dot than I do from my other applicator for my art glitter glue. It is amazing how fine the pinhole is for it. But it's very good glue. I really, really liked it. I very much enjoyed using it. I put some tape on the back and I wrapped the vellum around, and you can see I have that on an angle. I always put things on an angle, but I do. I have the sentiment, sending you a handcrafted hello from so very far away. I'm then just going to take this panel and adhere it directly onto my 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 top folding card base. And I didn't think the card needed anything else. I didn't think it needed any NuVo drops or anything like that. I'm just going with that. So it's almost like art graffiti. That was the feeling that I got for that. So for card number 4, lots of cutting going on. I saw this panel and we are just going to cut it up. So there's so many sentiments on this. There's so many cute words and cute blocks that I literally just went through and cut this panel up. So of course I cut out the handmade. I cut out the beautiful. I cut out the little block of live, love, create. I cut out the big one that I'm cutting right now that says so dreamy. And then the white blocks that are sitting on this, I cut those out as well, but I kept them, you know, together. I didn't cut, I wanted to keep the little tiny pink ruffle. And these are all the pieces that I got. So all I'm going to do is take all of these sentiments and just adhere them to my card base directly. I'm going to use the craft glue again from Simon Says. I really do like this. It grabs on quick. It's not a long dry time. You don't need a lot. A little goes a long way when it comes to this glue, because you never want to put too much glue down because it may make the paper buckle. It may make it warp. So you always want to use just a little bit of glue. You don't need, too much. So I'm just placing these all around, making sure that I leave a little bit of a border going around the edge. So it's like I'm putting a design base down. And then just arranging them. Now the majority of them are going to be flat on the card. These here, these white squares, I'm actually propping those up with some foam squares just to give it some dimension onto the card. And then I'm just placing them in certain areas as well, making sure not to cover up the other sentiments that I used. So just having fun with the placement. Again, making sure it looks okay. Again, your eyes will tell you when something does not look right, or maybe doesn't feel right. And that's usually how I go. I just go with what looks good as I'm crafting. So we're just setting the last few in. But this kit was really a lot of fun. And every time I looked at this piece of paper, I just saw it broken up. I didn't see it being cut for a panel to put something else on top of. I just saw it going crazy all over the card base. So I thought I was done here. You can see the fingers were tapping. And I'm using one of those little itty bitty sentiments. And this one says, I'd rather be crafting. And I'm just going to stamp that at every turn on the bottom right hand corner. Look how small that is. It's so tiny. It is just absolutely so cute. So that just added just a little bit to the card. For the last card, yes, we are pulling in more of the Gina K's. And I'm using here for this one, Innocent Pink, Red Velvet, Lipstick, Sweet wild lilac, charcoal brown. Yes, lots of colors. But what I'm doing, I'm using the envelope stamp from the set, and from each of these colors, I'm stamping 3 envelopes. Yes, I was having way too much fun here. So you can see that it's going to be a rainbow color. The lipstick color is kind of, again, it's coming up on my camera, very orangey, neon-ish almost. I then grabbed the circle with the envelope inside, and I used my VersaFine black onyx ink to stamp that down onto the bottom corner. And this is going to be on my design panel. So I'm setting that aside. So here I am. I'm going to use these scissors. So you have that little tiny notch there or lever, and when you push it up, it unlocks it. And then when you slide that back down, it actually locks it up as well. And you can actually use the lid to do that. So if you just pinch it closed and put the lid on, when you push the lid down, it'll lock it as well. So I'm just playing with these, just getting a feel for them. I had to get used to them. Again, it was something different. I wasn't comfortable with them. So I did end up going to another pair of scissors to cut all of these out with a little bit of a white border. I'm then using, I believe it is my red velvet or the lipstick. It's one of the reds. I think it's red velvet. And I put little tiny hearts on the envelopes. And again, we're playing with the placement. And I'm going to glue these down directly onto the card base. I did use my wonky stitch die from My Favorite Things to cut out the panel before I started applying these. And once these were set in place, I grabbed one of the hearts from the stamp set, and with my black, I'm just putting some hearts here and there, you know, filling in some of the gaps, because I wasn't quite sure, because I'm going to come in now with the next layer. Now the next layer is going to be up on some foam squares that are cut in half. Again, just to give it that dimension, just to raise it up a little bit. And before I got too heavily, I wanted to get my sentiment down onto the card. And I used the one that says hugs enclosed. So that's why we see so many hearts, so many envelopes. There's lots going on here. But I had fun building this. I think it's fun just to have this spray, a crafty spray of little tiny hearts and envelopes that are going to send out. That's what our panel looks like. We are going to adhere this directly onto an 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 top folding card base. And again, I'm going to use the glue. I wanted to see how that would work, using it to put down a card base that, you know, it's got a lot of layers, got a lot of levels going on to it. And let me tell you what, I'm looking at it right now. This glue is phenomenal. It is very good. Really like it. It's definitely something that I will keep in my stash. So these are the cards that we made. These are some close-ups that I'm going to show you. I had a lot of fun with these. I know I'm a little late getting this kit out. But all the materials that I used so far in this segment will be listed down below. Oh, please let me know when I forget something, because there's always something that I forget. I so apologize for that. But I will try to do better, making sure everything's listed down below. If you have any questions or comments, please leave that below as well. I still do love reading them. I still love learning about you and answering your questions. There's still some questions that I'm trying to get some information on to get back to people. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. I'd love to have you part of my gang here. There is so much more coming, and we're going to start the technique series, which you all created. Always remember, everyone, be creative.